you've been part of the franchise, the first two movies, and now the third one, and this is sort of like the completion of what's been happening so far to the Transformers, Autobots, and Decepticons. What was it like for you being part of the action and now actually seeing what has been happening in Chicago, knowing that they shut down 12 blocks, having their wingsuits? What was it like for you to step on that set?
I had more fun in Chicago than I think I've ever had in any of these movies for sure, but I think anything I've done. It was just an incredible city to shoot, like Lorenzo was talking about. The people were incredibly hospitable. At one point, I think the first weekend we were out there, there were, around the perimeter of the set, they counted 25 or 30,000 people with, you know, lawn chairs and coolers, and we'd set up, it'd take us an hour to set up one of these big action sequences, and then, you know, cars would fly, explosions would go off, and then the whole crowd would just start cheering. And we fed off of that, and it's something I'll never forget.
So it was like an open-air theater.
It was. It felt like theater, I guess, yeah. Or in a stadium or something like that.
But Chili's was much better in Alamogordo.
No. Don't bring up... Yeah.
Question from the floor from the gentleman in the third row with the glasses over there.
Hello, Volker Probst, NTV Online. I've got a question for Michael Bay or perhaps Mr. Di Bonaventura. In this story, you tell a complete new story about the mission to the moon. I don't know what the NASA says about this. There's a lot of conspiracy theories around that the NASA never went to the moon at all, that it all was just a Hollywood movie, and now perhaps it's the basis for a new conspiracy. I don't know, that they met aliens on the moon. Was there any reaction?
Well, I've always had, it turns out the head of NASA is a big Transformer fan as well. And I worked with them during Armageddon, so they invited me. They said I'm the only director to ever shoot on a live shuttle pad twice. So since they're retiring the shuttle, that's kind of interesting. But I've always had doubts that they landed on the moon. And when I invited Buzz Aldrin into my office to ask him if he would do this, Buzz, it took 5 minutes to say yes, and then it took 2 hours for this guy to keep pitching his book to try to tell me to make it into a movie. Once I got past that, I asked him, because I wanted to be technically accurate, what about the Hasselblad cameras? I said, what did you do when you brought them back? What did you put them in? And this is how I know they landed on the moon. He goes, brought them back. We had to throw everything out there. There's a junkyard on that moon. We barely got off. So that was not an actor. That guy was really there.
Thank you, John. To be honest...
Huh? The Hasselblad. Yeah.
Anything else that you want to say?
Me?
No, John. Actually, I was talking... John, to be honest, I think your character is even more frightful than the Decepticons. Is he sort of like a harmless version of Jack Unterweger, or is he someone that you've met in your long career that you based Bruce on?
Well, I mean... Although we did some degree of improvisation, it was really written that way. And when I proposed the idea to Michael, we had a couple of fairly in-depth conversations about it before we started. Because if we were going to go with a specific look, decide on a specific thing, then there are all these things you have to do well beforehand, before you show up to shoot. And so we decided to go that way, but I based it, I mean, the idea was based on someone I knew a little bit, who kind of looked like that and talked like that very confidently about absolutely nothing. And even though this person was a native English speaker, I don't think I ever understood a single word he said, or certainly not a single sentence. But he would just talk for hours, and was very happy with himself. So,
what about the martial arts? Was that sort of like the icing on the cake for the character?
That was Michael's idea, I think, or was it in the script?
The what?
The martial arts. That was in the script.
That was my idea.
Yeah, that was there. We took special care to give him a very nice glow in the martial arts photos, but And I think they were even photoshopped beyond, sort of. When I saw that in the movie, I thought,
John goes,
"That's
I
really
would
orange."
like to have big capped white teeth and a big dark tan slathered on.
Patrick, how would you describe your character, Sam's boss?
He's in a very difficult situation, and he just was looking at the whole thing as a business deal, pretty much, and how do you survive, and what is the best play, and that's sort of how I went about it, and it's all about sort of the con and just seducing him over to my side. That was sort of the approach, and make it really inviting and a nice place to be, and it was unfortunate that it had to turn out the way it did.
Shia, we know that you saved the world 3 times now, but Sam goes through a transition as well. In the first one, you sort of first girl, first car. What happens to him in the third one? And do you think that's sort of like a message in a way?
Look, we're not beating a message over anybody's head, but you meet a depraved man, a man who's he validated himself on his relationship with these robots. He was always the liaison between human and robot. Now the government is working hand in glove with these robots, and he's sort of the middleman who got edged out, and he has no purpose in his life. And that's where you meet Sam. He's sort of being propped up by this woman who's supporting him, and he's going out into the workforce and trying to find a job in the middle of the worst economy that's ever existed. And his special skills, saving the world 3 times, isn't something he can really use to get a job at IKEA. Or anything, and he can't be public about it. The world doesn't really know that he saved the world. He's the only one that knows, him and these sentient beings and his girlfriend. So he's sort of stuck. He's like a vet who came back from the war, who is dealing with sort of like he's trying to find purpose in his life.
Yeah, but it's like kids nowadays. They want to matter. They get out of college and you want to do something that matters. And
You want to change the world. You want something sacred in your life. He has ambitions to be domestic. And you're meeting him in the middle of flux.
Rosie, we heard that you basically did all the stunts on high heels, but when were you awestruck the most on being on the set of Transformers, Dark Side of the Moon? What did you think? When were you sort of ready to jump into the action and basically said, okay, this is exactly what I want to do? I mean, the first movie, then as big as this one, really amazing.
I wanted to do all the stunts as much as I could because I love that kind of sort of physical exercise and just, you get to really lose yourself in the whole thing and have a lot of fun. I mean, when am I going to have the chance in modeling to go up in a wire and shoot through the air and jump through explosions? And I remember we were staying in the Trump Hotel, which gave this amazing view on the 20th floor of the set one day. I think we were on Wacker Avenue. And we had closed down the entire thing, and I remember waking up, and it was on my day off, and looking down and just seeing the end of the world right there, this huge, huge set, and I could see all the Navy SEALs like little ants running through it, and there was like 3 explosions going off, and the cars were coming in really fast, and I could see Shia running, and then there was base jumpers shooting past the window, and 3 helicopters coming over, and all the press all the way around the barricades. And it was then it really hit me that, wow, this is huge. This movie is huge, and it's going to reach so many people, and I better work my ass off.
It looks amazing, the movie, and you did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Okay, last 3 questions. Gentlemen right here and then in the back.
Dante.
Mr. Bay, Sir Bay, I just remembered something. The last time we met, it was a panel very much like this. I called you a sick man. And I have to apologize and rephrase. I have to call you insane because the last hour of this movie is the most insane thing that I've ever seen. And my question, there is one, is how do you keep sane with a project like this? Do you have a trick or something? Do you stand there and just go like, I'm not actually here, this is not happening? Or do you have a trick to keep sane?
yeah, I like a lot of energy on the set, but I live with this movie in my head. It helps because I write my own action, so I'm very visual, and I just store it in here. I don't use a lot of notes, and I just kind of, I show the guys like animation, little crude animation. We've kind of worked some things out, and it's very detailed. I've got an amazing crew. And it's just, so you don't go insane, you just go one shot at a time. you know, because otherwise I would vomit.
Thank you. Gentleman in the back.
Hi, hello. What's the difference between shooting in a city like New York versus Chicago? Or I guess my question is more, why did you pick Chicago over a city like?
It's you know what, it comes down to, it was rough on Transformer 1 with geography. We kept getting kicked out of our city 2 blocks in LA, so we had to do 3 different locations to make it one. And geography is really, if you're going for a goal, the most important thing. What I like about Chicago, unlike New York is, you get down to the buildings and it's like a gauntlet, you know, and you can't get above it. What's nice about Chicago, they're very old with new buildings, and by the river it opens up. So this is kind of how the buildings are. They're very distinct, and there's a lot of depth and distance between different buildings. So it gave you a good sense of geography, and Chicago is just a beautiful city. And I don't know.
Also, I think it's probably easier in terms of permits and all of those things. And I think easier with the citizens, because in New York they have a tendency to wish you were dead. I mean, they even wish each other were dead. But it's not the easiest place to shoot in New York. It's not super. There's no tax incentive, I think, whatsoever.
No, they've got it now.
Yeah, they have one. But for years there wasn't, and that's why a lot of people go elsewhere. I mean, you almost never shoot New York for New York. It's always actually Toronto or somewhere else.
Is Berlin nice to shoot?
Yeah.
Is it easy to shoot?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah, don't get him started. He's going to want to come here for this.
Last question, the lady in the first row over there.
I have another question of our user from Movie Reporter. Get Refreshed wanted to know from Mr. Bay if you could give us any good message about the next Bad Boys, and if you are planning to shoot another movie with Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I would definitely work with Bruce. I loved working with Bruce. On Bad Boys, we are working on a script. You know, I know Will and Martin want to do it, so if we all get our schedules right, we might.
Okay, this is the Transformers press conference. Great to have you all here.
Dante has a question.
Dante has a question.
Dante, what's your question?
Dante,
Dante, what's the question?
What's your question?
You had your hand raised. Dante.
Okay, nächste Woche startet am Mittwoch Transformers. Thank you very much for being here, Tyrese, Patrick, Rosie, Michael, Shia, Jeong, Lorenzo.